Alright, this is Travis Wayne Goodsell. I'm going to do a government one on this one. To give you a little history lesson, World War II, Hitler started taking over Europe, and then World War II began, and Hitler was toppled, and communism spread throughout all the world. McCarthy in the United States, Senator McCarthy, thought that he could revise Hitlerism right here in America by claiming that communism was a threat in the United States. So now, that's the whole point, is that Republicans are Nazis, Democrats are communists. And so with this midterm election that we had in 2018, you hear all about socialism. It doesn't matter what they call it. Yes, if you want to get technical down to the specifics of a platform, then yes, but it all boils down to liberal or conservative. And it's sad because there's more than just those two categories. And I'm not talking about the subcategories in each of the two categories. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about something completely different than being liberal and conservative altogether. And that blows everybody's mind because nobody's ever conceived of such a thing. But oh well. And so, and I've talked about how psychiatry is to blame for this, and how they create a dichotomy, which is a fallacy argument. But so here we are with Trump getting impeached, and more direct evidence of his extortion threat with Ukraine, and Republicans, Fox News are all turning on Trump. And don't forget, Pence is going to go with them too, because Pence also is involved. Which means that Nancy Pelosi will take over the government for the rest of the year in 2020, and then we'll have the election, and then Democrats will sweep through the United States, just like in World War II. Notice any patterns? And so, yes, we all know the evils of Nazi Republicans, but democratic communism, nobody quite understands the evils of that one. Like I said, there are other options that are better for society. So understand this. So Democrats, what is their platform? Their platform is diversity. It's right there in their platform. Read it. Diversity. And so how does diversity work? Well, they equal the playing field for diverse people. And as a result, those who are better at something than others will likely get booted out, kept out. Just like those who are diverse now are being kept out because of white Republican oppression and suppression and depression and blah blah blah. And so that's the problem that we're going to be facing, is instead of going to the youth, to the family unit, and working at the family unit level to make everybody equal in the beginning, because you aren't going to be able to do it with adults without causing problems. You have to start with the youth. Say, we need to fix it, We need to go to the youth. Then the youth will all be equal and will have equal opportunities depending on their abilities growing up. And then everything will be fine in 20 years from now. And so that's not going to happen. Democrats won't do that process. And so what they'll do is they'll cause chaos by making everybody equal up front. Let me give you some examples. We already know that if the male patriarchy of authoritarianism is replaced with matriarchal authoritarianism, do you not recognize that that doesn't work? I'm gonna pause here for a moment and come back. See, we don't want one authoritarianism rule to be supplanted and replaced with another authoritarian rule. Okay, so you understand? We don't want to replace one corrupt government with another corrupt government. We don't want to replace one corrupt business with another corrupt business, etc., etc. And so we don't want diversity either. First of all, diversity is segregation. And I'll get to that in a minute. But again, Democrats won't start from the beginning of the family unit. They will start from scratch where everybody is right now. They will all be made equal, even though the life we've been forced into did not make us all equal. And so what's going to happen is that those who are in positions will be replaced with diverse people. And new businesses that start up will be forced to be diverse in their hiring. Because, for example, if your business requires or the best candidates for the job are black women, why not? And so they know that they can get the best results with black women, but because of diversity they can't. They have to be diverse in their hiring practices. So the best candidates for the job won't get the job. They get dismissed. And that's discrimination. When you force businesses to be diverse, you are discriminating. It's that simple. And that's the problem with the democratic mindset, is that segregation is already illegal and criminal even. And so how are they then? Well, a business, let me carry on with the business analogy. If a business has the requirement to get diverse people, and there's lots of diverse categories, religious, race, color, nationality, disability, etc., etc., etc. Utah this year in May added a whole long list of more discrimination categories, and it's too extreme here in Utah. But with Democrats, the problem with diversity is that if a business has just one extra of one particular discrimination category, they are going to be the targets for discrimination lawsuits, because people will claim that their discrimination category was not represented, and that therefore the business is not diverse enough and therefore is discriminating. And then the business is likely to go out of business, and everybody loses their job. That's the consequences of a diverse workplace, when you don't raise people from birth in an equal system. And so segregation is separating people by a discrimination category. We commonly understand it as racial segregation. Blacks, specifically, slaves in America, for example. And so segregationists became the term of those who pushed for slavery. And yet in the more general meaning, it's any creation of a discrimination category. So yes, Democrats with the diverse platform are segregationists, because even though they want all the different groups and they want them all to equally thrive and prosper, they all want them segregated. They want blacks to maintain black culture, they want whites to maintain white culture, Asian for Asian culture, Mexican for Mexican culture, Latino culture, etc., etc., etc. LGBT, they want a distinct, separate, segregated culture. And that's a problem, because America is supposed to be united. We were intended to be a melting pot, where everybody from all over the world could come and merge and be one people, not segregated people. And unfortunately, we were segregationists from the beginning, and so the Italians had their own streets, the Irish had their own streets, the slaves were the slaves on the plantations, and so the rich and poor even were segregated as they are now. And then we have Little Tokyo, Little Soho, the Jewish community, all these different categories of segregated groups. The Amish have their own community. Hutterites have their own community. The Mormons here in Utah, they had their own kingdom and were dethroned in order to become a part of the United States. And so Utah is trying to restore that kingdom that was stolen by the United States. And that's treason, and I'm working on that lawsuit. But nevertheless, under Democrats, the church would argue that they're being discriminated against because of their religion. And so they would push to have Utah as Mormonville. And according to the Democratic policies of contradiction and illegality, it would most likely fall to Mormons to take over Utah. And then people would be forced out of Utah who didn't fit in. And they're already trying to do that with some of us who can't flee. And that's why we're forced to go to the law to file lawsuits. But yeah, that's the great danger I see here. It's not just the economy where we don't get to own our property. which is communist. That's what the Democrats will have to do. They'll have to say, no, we can't have you own property. If you remember John Lennon's Imagine, great song, but imagine no possessions. Because that's communist talk. And we have to have possessions, but not land. That's the difference. We need to do away with land ownership, and we need to maintain and ensure property, not property as in land, but property as in possessions. Everything you see around, property. All the goods and services are all the goods that we need to live and have a good life, a life that we want to live. And that's anti-communism, because communism doesn't want you to own anything. And so that's what I worry about with a complete democratic takeover, is that it'll go to that extreme. And nobody's going to like that. But there's nothing we can do about it, because now Democrats are in control, and they use guilt tactics. Oh, are you discriminating against us? Same guilt tactic. So all your rights are also gone under communism, or democracy, as they call it. Because democracy is the majority vote. And we're not supposed to have democracy, because under a democracy, the minority does not get their rights. That's why the Constitution established a republican form of government called a constitutional republic. You have to use both Article 4 and Article 6 together to understand the form of government we were intended to have. We were not intended to have a kingdom with republican monarchs on the throne, and we were not intended to have communism with the diversity. We were intended to have a constitution with the three main rights, which, when violated, are the three main crimes. If you notice, Republicans are saying, well, there's nothing written in the Constitution about attempted bribery, just bribery. And Trump didn't actually bribe, he attempted, and that's not listed in the Constitution. See how ludicrous they are? But that's what they're doing to destroy the Constitution. Is they're trying to make a law for each and every single conceivable violation of the three main violations: life, liberty, property. That's it. That's all. You violate somebody's life, that's a crime. You violate somebody's liberty, that's a crime. You violate somebody's property, that's a crime. It's not complicated. You just go before a judge, you say, hey, my liberty was taken from me by this police officer who profiled me, and I was locked up in jail for 24 hours, lost my job, lost my family, lost my possessions, lost my character, and ruined for life. Crime. Police officer should be found guilty. And yet, for some corrupt reason, our government has found a way to let criminals go free and victims get further victimized. And under diversity, that's what will happen also. So I needed to get that out there. We need to do away with the establishments of liberal and conservative. It's that simple. There's no reason to have any of them. They don't provide life, liberty, and property to all equally. And that's what's needed.